Change in Formula 1 is about as inevitable as Birmingham being miserable, and it often seems a 50-50 in regards to how the changes will be received. How many times have we heard about the FIA getting it all wrong? How many times have we seen team, driver and fan backlash for baffling decisions that sometimes don't even make it to the circuit, for how bafflingly stupid of an idea they were? Well, it seems that the recent attitude towards a major upcoming change that could have a massive impact on the field, and especially the midfield and towards the back, has been incredibly positive, in what must have resulted in a mass exhalation of breath in relief back at the FIA headquarters. Today, the drivers, FIA and FOM will be meeting to discuss whether or not an overhaul of the point system should be implemented from 2025 onwards. And we're here to get you up to date on exactly what this vote would mean if it were to get the majority that it needs to come into effect. Want to know what the new point system could look like? It could be huge for many of the teams on the grid and not just the ones fighting at the front. And stick around as we cover all of the reactions from the teams. So what exactly is the rule change that is being proposed? Well, it's all to do with the point system. Currently, the points positions are from 1st until 10th, with the first place awarding 25 points to each respective championship, and last place awarding just the one, with a bonus point for anyone in the top 10 who performs the fastest lap of the race. Other than the fastest lap rule, this has been the case since 2010, where the ruling was made that the top 10 drivers would score points, replacing the top 8 system that was in there before. What seems crazy now is that up until 2003, only the top 6 drivers would score points, meaning that we would likely see 5 teams on 0 points by the end of the current season if the rules were how they were back then. The new system proposal, however, is that the top 12 drivers will each score points, with the current points down to 7th remaining the same, going from 25 to 1st, down to 6 points for 7th, and then stretching out the remaining points down to 12th, with 8th place scoring 5 points, then reducing by 1 point per place down to the final point scoring position. Not only will the generic place-based points be changing, but the opportunity for the fastest lap point will also be extended down to the new final point scoring position, which opens up the option for more people to risk slapping on a set of softs at the end of the race to risk not only a push for the fastest lap, but also the final point scoring positions with less risk of missing out by a tight margin. All parties will be casting their votes today, and while it has been known for F1 principals and drivers to say one thing in public and then another in private, it does seem that there is resounding support for the new point system that has been proposed. The most outspoken in their support are the teams currently down at the bottom, or team principals with experience in the dregs of the grid at previous teams, or even those that have a related team currently still down in the depths. So far this season, there is still 3 teams on 0 points, with each having a car finish in 11th and 12th places, coming just short of the promised land and having nothing to show for it. One of the high-profile voices that gave his support to the new proposal was the Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur, who hasn't forgotten his roots during his still fresh stint at the top of the sport. As the team principal of the Scuderia said, "I'm not against it, and coming from Alfa Romeo, I perfectly understand sometimes the frustration that you are doing a mega weekend, but if there is no DNF in front of you and you finish P11, the reward is 0. At the moment, you can finish P11 or P20 and it's the same, so I can understand the frustration for this." The least enthusiastic tone was more that of impartiality due to it not really affecting Christian Horner and the Red Bull team at this time because their cars don't tend to finish outside of the top 5, never mind the points. The main concern for Horner was that if the data supports the need for a change, and if it does, then he'll go along with it. So while not exactly promising his support, he will likely be swayed if the contents of the meeting between the FIA and FOM is satisfactory. This is what Christian had to say on the matter. "It feels like there are 2 groups in Formula 1 at the moment, and the teams from 6 to 10 are in as hard of a fight as 1 to 5. I think it's one of those things where you've just got to run the numbers and look at the analytics and say, what would it actually change? So I'm impartial to it." The main reason for this change being such a massive one for the battle at the back of the field is down to the simple fact that there are 5 teams with 2 cars, each currently dominating the points positions. Currently, if both Red Bulls, Astons, McLarens, Ferraris and Mercedeses all finish within the top 10, something that can be a stretch given Lance Stroll's continued existence in the sport, and Mercedes' current nosedive at risk of continuing if its Miami upgrades miss the mark, then that's all of the points on offer soaked up. A shocking statistic released by Sam Cooper on Planet F1 entailed that a mere 2% of the current points available so far this season, 546, have been taken up by teams outside of the aforementioned top 5. That is 12 points out of 546. Now, given that any sport is a meritocracy and we shouldn't exactly be giving out trophies for last place here, it could be seen just as the nature of a competitive sport that the fastest taking up the points positions isn't necessarily a bad thing. But this isn't handing out trophies. This is giving more people the opportunity to score points to secure trophies for the future, and even the teams at the bottom of the sport are huge sporting monoliths that want to fight for each position. It's not like the new proposal will be creating a system that even Andrea Moda could survive in, and if anything, having a more meaningful fight in the bottom half of the table will make for a more entertaining championship, and every race weekend will see more opportunity for meaningful fights further down the grid. All of a sudden, being P14 on a fresh set of tyres with 5 laps to go is no longer a question of just surviving to the flag, it's an incentive to go for glory. RB team principal Lauren Mekies gave his unconditional support, highlighting the fact that the top 5 aren't the only big players in the sport, as he said, "Of course I will support that. There are no backmarkers anymore. There are 6 OEMs in F1 plus Red Bull Racing, so it's like 7 top teams. Even the bottom 5 teams are large organizations now, and it's very difficult to explain to the outside world, to our partners, and to our fans that we battle for a P11 that actually grants 0 points. If you look at the level of competitiveness of the top 5 teams and the reliability level of the cars, it means that for most of the race you're battling theoretically for 0 points, and we don't think this is right." Mekies would also raise the valid point of making the shock 5th place finish at a messy or fortunate race no longer making teams uncatchable, something that has been seen across the history of the sport. No longer will the team have to chip away point by point, they will have a few more on offer to make the mountain set by another team's good fortune all the more climbable. We also think it's more meritocratic because if you score points up until P12, you will avoid the effect of if there is something completely stunning that happens and somebody scores a P5 or a P4 in the rain, it means that the other guys can stay home for 10 races. We think it's ticking all the boxes with virtually no downside, so hopefully it will get through. Haas team boss Ayo Komatsu has the stance that not only will the proposed changes benefit the teams, it will benefit the fans by creating more entertainment further down the grid, something that will be somewhat of a two-sided coin. On the one side, the fans get more entertainment for the cost of entry, and on the other, the teams further down the grid will get more eyes on their cars, making them a far hotter property in regards to investors and potential sponsors who may have otherwise overlooked them due to the teams having less screen time. It also opens up the sport to more controversial moments further down the grid in the scrap for the lower points, something that will bring even more eyes to the sport and to the teams further down the grid. I mean, just imagine if Magnussen pulled the stunt of holding back a third of the grid and how vicious the teams behind the Haas would have been for being denied the chance to fight for more than just "we may have gotten something from this race." The Haas team principal had fans on his mind when he made his stance on the potential change clear, saying, "What's the downside? Currently we have 3 teams with 0 points and I don't think that's good for the sport. If somebody was awarded points for P11, P12, there will be less people with 0 points. So I think it's clearer for the fans and for the motivation of everybody working in a team as well. It's much better to come out with P12 with 1 point, P11 with 2 points. It's a reward." The result of this vote won't be known until after this video has been made. However, as soon as it is and reaction has come out, we'll be sure to keep you updated.